Hello and welcome to the No Balls Podcast. I'm your host, Patrick McDonald. With me, co-host Sheldon Kaufman. Episode 16 of the NBA Preseason show. Here we are starting the Western Conference here in the Northwest Division, I think, with the Denver Nuggets.
Yeah.
Denver, this is an interesting team. One of the more, with the decisions that they've had to make following their championship run. It's a real case study with how the second apron and the new CBA stuff is working. So, you got any comments on Denver before we get started?
Definitely an interesting team for some different reasons than the interesting teams we talked about from the East. I think.
Yeah, because this is, I don't know. A lot of people thought that Denver was definitely still the favorite rolling into the playoffs. I think I was definitely in that group. Um, they came up short, and when I was searching earlier for reasons on why that happened, besides just saying that Jamal Murray was banged up, a lot of their stuff looked very similar, and uh like their advanced numbers look very similar regular season and postseason. So maybe they just were a tick short at the end of the day. We'll get forward onto what their advanced numbers did look like in 2024. They were 57 and 25, second in the Western Conference, and like I mentioned, second round exit to Minnesota. Um, their expected record based on their net rating was 54 and 28, which is a tad bit lower than their actual record, which is somewhat interesting. Um, at home, they were 33 and 8. They have a crazy home court advantage because of the elevation that they have. It makes it a lot harder to be sustainably athletic up there. I think Shaquille O'Neal had said that he just can't breathe up there. I don't. Maybe that has more to do with Shaq's diet, but uh, Jokic can
And
do it just fine, I guess. On the road, they were 24 and 17, so again, very solid. Pre All-Star break, 36 and 19, 21 and 6 post All-Star break. Versus the Eastern Conference, 24 and 6, and then versus the Western Conference, 33 and 19. And a big part in why they exceeded their expected record, 26 and 14 in clutch games, which was third in the NBA. In other games, they were 31 and 11. Any comments on the record before we get into just the stats about the team?
yeah. So last year, I think they failed in the playoffs, but I don't know if that was really as much as their fault as how good the Timberwolves were last year and just the emergence of Ant, Cat, and that whole squad down there. Really, we saw a great series from them. Went 7 games, very entertaining series. Uh, Jokic, did he win MVP again?
Yeah, he won MVP again, third MVP.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, 3 MVPs. Um, Dude's a baller. Probably one of the most funny slash interesting players in the league because of how much he doesn't give a shit about basketball. Um, I think I saw him more happy playing in Dragic's retirement game than any NBA game. But
Hmm.
yeah, just unfortunate for them. But I mean, this is still. I mean, they still have some premier players, so you can never count them out.
Yeah,
But
and at this point, you're witnessing an all-time player at their peak right now. It's um, I don't know what the consensus in the NBA, but Jokic is probably the best player in the NBA right now, and
mm,
you know it's not super significant margin, but for how significant the number one to number two usually is, it's pretty clear. Like this is the guy right now. Um,
yeah,
and the Nuggets specifically feel that on the offensive end. We'll get into the defensive end with Jokic, I'm sure, in the scheme section. Going overall for 24, 5.4 net rating, which was fourth in the NBA. On offense, they had a 118.5 offensive rating, which was fifth. a 113 defensive rating, which was eighth. So they were top 10 unit in both sides of the ball. I think only two other teams in the East did that. I believe the Knicks and the Celtics did that. Um, yeah, usually that is what it takes to be a top tier finals contender. They, certainly checked those boxes last year. Um, Breaking down the actual offense, 22nd in transition offense, not very great. They were a more methodical team. They know that they can get their possessions in the half court. In the half court, 18th in pick and roll ball handler efficiency, 30th in frequency. So they weren't running a ton of just straight up pick and rolls. And they weren't too great at them. 41st percentile. I'm actually interested in what that was a couple seasons ago. I'll pull that up while I throw out the rest of these numbers.
All right.
Fifth in pick and roll, roll man defense, 19th in frequency, 86th percentile. So they were pretty solid at that. Well, you take a look, the guy running everything at center, it makes a lot of sense why they were really good in the role. And post ups, of course, since he's there, third in post up efficiency, first in frequency, 93rd percentile. They, you know, they have Nikola Jokic. He's going not only in the scoring game in the post, but passing out of the post. I don't know if there's a single better post player in the NBA right now. And there's maybe not even that many, probably only like two or three better than him all time in post offense. So yeah, 93rd percentile post offense, and then isolation game, 27th in ISO efficiency, 10th percentile, and then 27th frequency. So they were not very good at it, but they did not run it very frequently. I think I said 27th, 20th frequency there. Sixth in offensive rebounding. They were getting a good amount of extra possessions there. 12th in 3-point percentage, 29th in 3-point attempts, 13th in pull-up 3 percentage, and 20th in pull-up 3-point attempts. So anything here on their offense before we break down their defense statistically?
I'll probably go more into it during the scheme stuff, but I mean, like you said, a lot of this offense does revolve around how great Jokic is.
Yeah.
I would
Uh,
say that's my comment.
having him there is kind of the big thing that really helps. And of course, NBA.com does not allow me to pull up their stats from a year ago. So wonderful. Um, Next up, defense. Like we said, they were an eighth ranked team there. 10th in transition defense. They were solid in transition. Uh, in the individual parts of half court defense, fourth in pick and roll ball handler defense, 21st in frequency, 90th percentile. Very solid right there. And, you know, you might not think of the Nuggets as a defensive team, but they're also a championship caliber team. They can still defend really well. Next, 11th in pick and roll defense, second frequency, 66th percentile. Very solid unit there and stopping roll points. And as you can see, second frequency teams did it a lot. So they were getting a ton of points just on their ability to protect the rim. Or obviously prevent pop defenders as well. But they were very good there. 15th in post defense, 8th in frequency, 52nd percentile. Again, another solid unit. They were just not very bad at any one thing on defense, and that was the strength of this team, is that they were very solid at a lot of things on defense. Again, isolation, 17th in isolation defense, 17th in frequency. It's fine, 45th percentile. They're not losing a ton here. They're really good at the things that they're good at, and they're not bad at the things that they aren't really good at, is the identity of this defense. 15th in defensive rebounding. This is overall a solid defensive unit. We're now going to probably shift into the scheme stuff, so anything on their defense or the schemes that make their defense that you really wanted to point out here?
I think that Malone is definitely, or Malone and Jokic have kind of transformed the defense a little bit. Just because what I noticed a lot during pick and roll is Jokic does a lot of hedge and recovering, and it works really well at creating turnovers and starting fast breaks. You don't think of Jokic as the most mobile guy, but he's definitely picked it up a little bit. Definitely at this point in his career, which I really liked. They're a really active team, switching, very active with hands, causing a lot of turnovers. Kind of like I would say a team defense, not really one of those individual defense. A lot of good individual players. I would say it's a very good team defense.
Yeah, and that's reflected in their isolation defense being 50 or 45th percentile. Um, that's typically where you see what teams have the best individual defenders. They don't really have that. You mentioned with Jokic, his defense gets brought up a lot, and the big number with him, I believe, is his. Everybody with their centers, they look at rim field goal percentage against them, stuff like that. Jokic, I believe, is in the bottom quartile in centers in the NBA. Where Jokic, I think, is actually really solid is he's sneakily mobile, um, but he's not mobile like you want him hedging on pick and rolls and you want him jumping in front of guys. You kind of don't want him in drop. And a lot of that, it has to do with his rim protection. He's not a really good vertical athlete. I mean, we'll call a spade a spade. He's probably one of the worst in the league at
Yeah,
leaping ability, and his length is probably average for an NBA center, but he has really quick feet somehow. Like he's despite being in the physical shape that he is, it's a lot of the skill game comes with the good footwork. He allows them to play an interesting style of defense that really enables their wings to make plays to save around the rim stuff. It's very similar to what the Timberwolves did a season ago or two with Karl Anthony Towns. They would blitz screens with Towns, and they would let guys like McDaniels, Vanderbilt. They definitely had other guys there that were long and athletic, and Edwards was a part of it as well. A ton of guys like that. They were making it to where those guys could go around and just cause chaos out there. It would be very interesting, and I think there's another Northwest team that I think could employ a similar strategy to this with one of their bigs. Um, Overall, the scheme really unlocks the best form of this team, and you know, it has to do with Jokic at least being willing to go out there and run his feet a lot. Uh, yeah, that's all I really have on their defense. They play a lot of stuff pretty straight up too, and their guy Aaron Gordon, he'll guard anybody is what they like to do
yeah,
with him. Um,
yep.
yeah. Any offensive scheme notes to make?
Yeah, real quick, Torian Prince was on that team, one of those
Yeah,
defensive
he
wings.
was. He dropped like
Good friend of the
36
show,
against the Knicks.
good friend of the show, Torian Prince. Um, yeah, this was a very interesting offense. Like you said, not a lot of they don't really like to run the traditional like pick and roll, but they do set a lot of screens. Most of that being off ball screens, whether it be for cutters or for shooters. A lot of it is just give it to Jokic in the post and let him work. Either, like you said, passing out of that. Their role players do a really good job of cutting to the rim. One of the reasons they're so successful offensively. Also, just letting Jokic score in the post, like you said, one of the best post scorers in the league. Um, I mean, we saw him bully Rudy Gobert. Rudy Gobert was literally. Oh wait, maybe I think I'm one series ahead, uh but yeah, but Rudy Gobert, he kind of got he got actually he got bullied off defensively at times.
In the
Just
23
really
series.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Jokic is a beast. and also they kind of they'll run a two-man game at times with Murray and Jokic
Hmm.
if they need to.
And it's a very unstoppable action when Jamal Murray doesn't have a broken foot. Um,
Yeah,
he has a broken foot out there; it's a little more stoppable. But
yeah,
um, interesting. I mean, we might talk about it in the Timberwolves episode, but the way that they decided to guard it was to uh like play. It was very interesting. They would play Gobert off of Jokic, and they would have Gobert play drop defense, even if Jokic was setting the screen, and they'd
yeah,
have Towns stay with Jokic, but Gobert would play drop.
yeah.
It's really weird, and we'll talk about it in the Timberwolves episode. I think it's really fun. And that's how you know you really have a generational player right there. Is you see those generational type things, not
Yeah.
generational, but like, whoa, what the hell are they doing? You had it with Harden, with guys putting their hands behind backs, Giannis building walls to stop him. Like that's how
Uh,
you know you have an
yeah.
unstoppable player out there.
What about Ricky Rubio playing behind James Harden that one
Hmm.
year, that
I
one
think
playoff series? I was like, what is he doing?
the Bucks did it too on him.
Yeah,
They just
no, it was
decided to
like
play
a
behind him.
they like it was like a thing going around the league. Like they thought that's how they were going to stop Harden. Like Harden was just different, man.
Yeah. Yeah, so their two-man game there is so unstoppable. A big part of that is the two guys running it. They have Jokic, they have Murray. These guys are obviously great, like generational player in Jokic and Murray, who's a borderline All NBA, All Star caliber player. A big part of it is they've only ever played together in the NBA. Um, with Murray, you can kind of question if a lot of his ability is because it's with Jokic. Um, he didn't really show up for Team Canada this year, but these guys have only ever played together. It's a lot about the system QB stuff in the NBA or in the NFL, but these guys can really play together. Jokic, I believe, was a 2014 guy. He came over a season later in 2015. Didn't really do much his rookie season. Then the next season, he starts to get a lot more playing time. That was Murray's rookie season. These guys are playing a lot in bench units together that season. Murray was a early first round pick. He was probably like 10th overall. Um,
Yeah.
that pick was in the Melo trade. Um, anyway, Mike Malone, I believe, became head coach in Murray's rookie season. Then they move away from Yusuf Nurkic. These guys play together. The coach has only ever had these guys. It's just a group of guys who have just progressively learned basketball together. It makes it really interesting on that standpoint. One thing I do want to touch on, they kind of always in the regular season have played centers when Jokic isn't on the court. When Jokic when Jokic is off the court in the playoffs, they've only really played Aaron Gordon at center minutes. They played some Jeff Green in their playoff run, but they just haven't had success with real centers on this team since Jokic has really rose to the next level. Um, you looked like you had a comment there.
Nah. It's just Jeff Green has been like old as hell for so long. Because I remember when he was on the Wizards and he was like old as like really old, and
Yeah,
now he's been on like 4 teams since.
and he really he, he was
He's
kind of
not
like
that.
yeah, he's still kind of good, but like he was
Yeah,
really like kind of a difference maker on the Nuggets that year, and it was like, whoa,
yeah, I
where
know.
where's this come from? He feels like he's been
Yeah,
washed for 10 years now.
yeah,
Um,
exactly.
but yeah, that's all I really have on their coaching and scheme stuff. You ready to move on to the off season?
Yep. Let's get into it.
All right, so they had an interesting and maybe a little bit of a controversial offseason with some of the decisions they did and did not make. One that I don't think was too controversial in the draft, 22nd overall, they select Deron Holmes the second. Uh, any comments on Deron Holmes before we start?
Um, well, very unfortunate what happened to him,
What
right?
happened to him?
He tore his ACL
Oh
in the
shit, he
summer league.
did. I forgot about that.
Yeah, yeah,
Yep, that definitely did happen. Oh yeah, I remember. I remember. Yep, I did all of Duran. Okay, I'll go ahead and do the Duran section. Somehow I didn't get to Duran Holmes. I think if I would have evaluated him in my evaluation process, he might have been a top 15 guy for me. If I would have done him, I just never got to him. Somehow I don't know. I think I did Kalel Ware over him. I did a bunch of other guys over him. I mean, I had Kalel top 15 as well, but
yeah,
um, I just I never got to Duran. It was like a second year player, actually a third year college player who was just kind of a big. I assumed he wasn't that great of a prospect. I actually really liked what I saw out of him. Um, his handle, he's very polished with his handle for a big. I didn't get his exact measurements, but he has some really good skill, and he looks like he should be a good passer in the league. He did a lot of passing in college, especially in his last season, where he had a really high usage rate for a center. I believe he averaged around 20 a game. Um, his overall skill is really solid. I'll say this: my biggest concern about him uh, is his athleticism. He doesn't seem to be a great athlete, explosiveness wise, but he does seem to be really coordinated. That should allow him to get to be able to succeed off of these self-created opportunities from Nikola Jokic. Um, on his shot, he shot 40% on catch and shoot his last season in college. Only 3 shots a game from three, which isn't horrible volume, but it's not crazy high. He was around 72% from the free throw line his last season. His percentages got better from the free throw line and from three all 3 seasons of his career. Um, and he should be a great transition player. I really like his handle. I really like his feel for the game. Um, at first, when I saw this pick, I was like, it's a fair pick at 22 to get the guy who's going to play when Jokic doesn't play. And I think he could do some of that because he's got the passing feel. But he kind of really reminds me of Aaron Gordon as a player. He doesn't have the bulk yet. He's Aaron Gordon's a solid 250. Deron looks like he's 230-ish.
yeah, two
But
thirty six.
yeah, I really like Deron, and I think he would have been NBA ready, like maybe not right away, but he would have really fit in here in Denver, I think. Did you have any other comments on him?
Yeah, I don't know if you talked about it, but he's really good in the post. Really good footwork. He can score. He can score with both hands, and he has really good touch with both hands. A thing I really like about him fitting in with this Denver Nuggets scheme is how good he is at rolling to the rim. He shot 52% on attempts last year rolling to the rim. Um, he's a good force play. I mean, like you said, yeah, good 3 point shot. It's gonna be interesting to see if that can translate to the NBA level. I'm not really sure yet, but you talked about the playmaking. The only concerns I have with that is just the turnovers. He struggled with turnovers throughout his all 3 years at college, but a lot to like. I really like him. His post scoring and his 3 point shot are going to be a really good asset for the Nuggets. And he's 6'9", 7'1" wingspan and can pass the ball. And he averaged 20 points per game last year. Like, he can score. So,
Yeah,
really good pickup.
and I really like him in lineups with Jokic, and I really like him in lineups with Aaron Gordon without Jokic. I think that's something that he could be really solid in. You had mentioned the turnover stuff. I think a lot of the turnovers are him just having to do much scoring the ball. Uh, I think he's a really solid short roll passer, a really solid handoff player, and his post up passing is actually like maybe was the best in the draft that I've seen this year. Unless somebody's just massively slipping my head. I mean, he really knows the game, and I like his playmaking ability. And it's what they love here in Denver too. So, unless you have anything else on Duran or any of their UDFA's, um, we can move
I
forward to the
mean,
other stuff.
PJ Hall was an interesting pickup. I thought that they got. Uh,
Yeah, a shooter.
it's yeah, a shooter, but he's a center, right? Maybe power
Yeah,
forward. I mean,
he's
that's
a
what I
tall
thought.
shooter.
Yeah,
Interestingly, they had, I believe, 5 or 6 UDFA's. They had 6: Trey
yeah,
Alexander,
yeah,
PJ Hall, Spencer Jones, Gabe McLaughlin, uh, another Jalen Williams, and Jameer Young.
yeah.
Uh, a ton of guys. I'm not sure how many of these guys are on contracts. I'll pull it up right now. Um, but and we'll talk about their cap situation. I'll let you get the floor because you had brought it up before we started. With their players that are not their core four guys. What was the number you gave me?
Yeah, so I mean, pretty much all their guys that aren't starting are getting under $10 million a year. Um,
Yeah,
I think the highest is 8 million, and it's Zeke
Zeke
Nnaji.
Naji.
Yeah, and I think that's been. I don't think that's a very.
Good
Uh,
contract.
yeah, I don't think it's a good contract. I mean, yeah, I think it's pretty much vet minimum. I mean, Sarge is making 5 million, but besides that, everyone's making pretty much under that, which I
Yeah,
thought was
so
kind of crazy.
Najee had been a first rounder or a late second rounder for them a couple years ago. They gave him this extension, hoping that he would grow into being what they drafted Deron Holmes just now to do. It hasn't worked out. Of their UDFA's, PJ Hall, power forward, so yeah, he's a tall shooter. Spencer Jones and Trey Alexander got two-way deals. Jameer Young, Jalen Williams, and Gabe McLaughlin are all on Exhibit 10s. Um, those will probably just be turned into G League contracts. I'm seeing here that Gabe McLaughlin is 29 years old.
Ah,
Did he
really?
did he play in the NFL? That wouldn't make sense because he was just in college.
Thank you. Was wait? How do you spell it?
Wait, well now I'm seeing that he's 30 as well, which doesn't. He graduated high school in 2018, so
Is it
six
the guy
years
that went
ago.
to Grand Canyon?
No, this has got to be picking up a different Gabe McLaughlin.
Okay, here. I got 6'7", redshirt senior, forward. Don't tell me how old he is.
Yeah, what? Because there's no way. Like, how is he 30 years old?
It says 24. Born he's 25. He's 25. I don't know what source you
What's
got
it?
your stuff from.
What's saying that what's it saying was
ESPN
his date of birth?
1999,
What's like the date?
March 3rd.
Okay, yeah, this has him as March 3rd, 1995. All right,
That's foul.
I'm gonna take this out.
The
Cause,
random ass Gabe McLaughlin getting
cause I
being
was like,
shirt.
how is he a 24 UDFA at 29 years old? It's
Yeah.
crazy. Going into their other addition subtractions, 2 additions that they made. Um, Dario Saric and Russell Westbrook. I'll let you get the floor on these 2 guys. Either of them that you really want to make a significant point on, I'll give you the floor now.
I mean, I guess we'll go with Russell Westbrook because I mean that's probably their biggest signing this offseason. Um, I mean, he's. I mean, you're probably looking. I mean, you're looking at their backup point guard, in my opinion. Um, Russ, he's had kind of trouble throughout his career really finding a home ever since he left Washington. But I mean, if he scored 11 points per game last year, 5 rebounds, 4.5 assists. I believe he was coming off the bench for the Clippers last year. Maybe a little bit of both, starting and bench. So I mean, he's still shown flashes of Russ, but he also still thinks he can shoot like he used to, which he definitely cannot, which hinders his game a little bit. But I mean, he's a good rebounder, and he can still score around the basket. He does have that playmaking ability. But yeah, his shooting efficiency is terrible. 27% from 3 point last year. Um, he's had turnover problems. He's a little defensively inconsistent. Um, but yeah, I mean, they're running it back. So this is the second time with Westbrook. Uh, this is the first official, real time that he actually gets to
No,
play.
right? No.
He
It
was on the
it
team
was
for
the
like.
Jazz. It was the Jazz who cut him
Oh, I
before.
thought it was the Nuggets.
No, it was the Jazz cutting
Oh,
him
my fault. My
before,
fault.
and then they cut him again before he gets to Denver here.
Oh, okay, okay. Well,
So,
anyways, yeah,
really interesting thing with Russ, he was cut when the Lakers traded him to Utah in the deal that got them Beasley and Jared Vanderbilt and D'Angelo Russell. Then
yeah,
the
yeah.
Jazz cut him. He goes to the Clippers. I think he's only eligible for a certain amount of money because he got cut. He was only eligible
Uh,
for a certain amount. Then he signs that deal with the Clippers for a 2 year, like 8 million. I think that wasn't even the most he could have made, but I think that was the most he could have made going back to the Clippers. I think is how it worked. Um, so that was already a bargain contract. Then he gets traded. The Jazz cut him again, and now he's playing for a minimum. I wouldn't say Westbrook's like a great player at this point, but he's like a $6 million player. The Nuggets are giving him the vet minimum. Maybe not even that. I think since he was cut, he only has to make like rookie first round pick, like 30th overall pick money. So yeah, a really weird situation. You brought up Saric, or we brought up Saric. Saric is an interesting player. I think right now he is what they hoped Najee would at least be at this point in his career. Of course, Najee hasn't become that yet, but Saric is making 10 million over the next 2 seasons, a 3.5% cap hit, perfectly fine deal here. It gives them a change up to throw on just playing small ball with Aaron Gordon. It gives them a spacer that they can put at the 5 and hopefully at least produce some solid offenses when Jokic is on the bench. Um, do you have anything on that standpoint there?
yeah, I agree. He's he's just a reliable four spacer. I mean, he's been doing it pretty much his whole career. Um, yeah, he's gonna be good for those minutes when Jokic is out.
Yeah, for sure. Going back to their addition, we just talked about all their additions. Now their subtractions. Uh, they had two pretty significant ones, I would say. Um, they lose Colin Gillespie, two-way guy, not too much. James Huff, actually an interesting player. Maybe not NBA caliber, but a lot of people like James Huff. Braxton Key, not a significant loss. One of the interesting ones, we had brought it up in the Charlotte episode. I think he was still on the Hornets at that point. We had said that they brought him in, Reggie Jackson. Then the Hornets cut him, but now he ended up on Philly. They lose Reggie Jackson. He played backup point guard for them last year. He was okay at it at best. Um, there's a reason they were bringing in Russell Westbrook because it was an upgrade. Is the big thing there. Uh, their other two big. These are the two big ones in my opinion. Big losses: Justin Holiday and KCP. The advanced numbers, we'll get into them later, but KCP was kind of a darling there, and then Justin Holiday was actually a surprisingly very solid wing for them this season. Do you have anything on KCP and Justin Holiday?
I think the KCP is significant for them. Just kind of it weakens the depth that they had. In my opinion, now you have a situation where Christian Baron now maybe has to step into a starting role. Um, and definitely rather have KCP there. 10 points per game. He shot 40% last year from the 3 point line. He was really big for them. He was a good defender. Um, I didn't really. The Aaron Holiday. Really good defender. He could finish at the rim. Really good energy guy. Spot scoring,
Yeah,
scoring
6 foot
bunches type of
6
guy.
and shoots a little bit and plays
Yeah.
hard. They needed guys like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. And the Reggie Jackson one. I
Whatever.
don't know. I don't know. I think. I mean, Jackson just definitely. It's gonna. I think Westbrook. It, that it's gonna be interesting to see if that works out because I don't know. I don't know if Westbrook can produce at the same level that Jackson did, at least offensively. Like Jackson. I think put up just better numbers. Just he's more efficient shooting. Obviously,
Mm,
Westbrook more athletic, better score around the rim. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. It depends what kind of Westbrook you get. Are you going to get like the bitchy Westbrook that kind of just checks out of the season, or are you going to get a guy that wants to go win a championship? I think if you get a guy that you want to go win a championship, Westbrook's a better player than Reggie Jackson. I think if we get the rust that we've been getting for the past couple years, it's going to be a bigger loss than people think. But yeah,
yeah, certainly. We had KCP. Is what I wanted to say. KCP. It was one that you felt like they should have definitely got it done to get him back in town. He did get a really big contract with Orlando. Like 22 million is not easy to get, but the Nuggets could have re-signed him for that 22 million dollars. The thing with KCP is I'm sure they wanted to bring him back, but if they would have brought him back, it would have thrown them into the second apron of the salary cap, which if they would have done that, they definitely couldn't have got Westbrook. Um, you, I'm pretty sure you can't do sign-in trades if you're in the second apron. You can't combine salaries in trades. You have to
damn,
take on less money in trades. It just it makes it so it. They were one of the few teams that's had to make a decision on if they want to enter the second apron. They chose not to. It's a small market team. It makes sense. It just you wouldn't expect that with a generational talent around them in Nikola Jokic for them to opt to do it that way. Um, Other than that, I don't have too much on their offseason. They didn't have a lot to do. They have a lot of their core signed. They have all four of their core guys signed, except one guy, Jamal Murray, currently eligible for contract extension, entering his last season here. There's been a lot of talks on his health going into the year. What has been offered to him, guaranteed, is a 208 over 4 years, which is 52 million. It's a ton of money, and that's a 30% salary cap hit contract. Murray has declined this. I think the big reason behind him declining this is if he makes All NBA, or he wouldn't be able to sign the 35% contract for another 2 seasons if he signed that. Basically, to get a 35% max, you need to be on the team, a certain team for a certain amount of years, which Murray would hit because he's been on the Nuggets his whole career, and you need to have played 10 seasons in the league. If Murray plays 2 more seasons, this one and then one other season, he would and makes All NBA, then he would be eligible for a 35% contract. And I think that's what he's wanting to do. We saw Donovan Mitchell sign a similar deal to allow him to make more money sooner in a similar deal. I think it's a similar type of thing that Murray's wanting here. Um, and, the Nuggets have offered him the most that they can offer him. It just doesn't seem like it's what he wants to do financially right now. Whether or not we would want to sign Murray to that 30%, I think could be up for debate. But um, what do you generally feel about Murray for 30% of the salary cap?
I mean, that contract you just 52 million a year. You said.
52 a year.
Yeah. So I just looked it up real quick, and it like you're getting the same as Jokic. You're paying him the same as Jokic, Karl Anthony Towns, players like KD, Jalen Brown. Um, you know, it, like you said, the health is definitely a concern, and if and Murray ends up walking, I think you have to start looking for replacements now, just in case that doesn't work out. Just to have some options, whether that be the draft or um, going through free agency. Even though that's going to be hard because they're in the first apron, right? I don't know, what kind of.
They're locked into the first apron, but they're not currently in the second apron.
So is that
I
any
don't.
free agency restrictions on the first apron? Do you know?
They there's like there's no free agency restrictions. The restrictions that they have are just by them being over the cap so much, and they're already taxpayers, so they don't get the full mid-level exception. They get a partial mid-level exception, which is what they use to sign Saric.
Okay.
Um, Other than that, they still get their full border rights exceptions. They're nowhere near the hard cap. Signing Murray next season probably wouldn't push them into the second apron, I don't think, for next year. Because he's already getting around 30 million a season, so he would bump up. I don't think it would instantly bump up to 52 million. It would probably start at around uh mid 40s. I'm trying to find a player who has the same contract structure, but everybody in this range has already gotten um their big 35% deal, and it's a 35% deal from a couple years ago. Um, I think it would be similar to the Bradley Beal contract, except it wouldn't have a no trade clause, I think is how it works.
Yeah.
Um,
See, I don't know. Like you don't really want to break up what's been working so well for you,
mhm.
being Murray and Jokic. Um, I mean, you don't really have the luxury of being able to offer him huge contracts, right? They don't have that much salary cap to be giving him. You said they
Yeah,
offered him the
well,
most they could.
yeah, they've already offered him the most that they could right now.
Most they could. Yeah, so maybe in 2 years things change. I think right now you just let it play out. Let this season play out. Start to worry about this next season more when you have free agency and stuff. Um, I'm sure they'll offer him another contract come that time. So
Mhm.
this would definitely be a situation where you just, oh damn, this definitely be a situation where you just let things play out.
Yeah, for sure. Um, and it's not a thing that, like, if they don't sign him now, they can't sign him later. There's
Yeah,
they won't be able to sign other guys if they don't re-sign Murray is the big thing. Um, it it's just one of the more interesting contract sagas in the league right now. And it's maybe because I do feel like the player's kind of fair to value himself where he is right now, even if he's probably not worth the full 35%, but it it's not that far off, I don't think. Going forward into some of the stats stuff that I will spend a little bit of time to find out. Nikola Jokic is really good. If you didn't know, so the big thing without Jokic on the court, only KCP had a positive net rating. It was 1.9 ish. Um, Everybody with Jokic on the court had a net rating of at least 7, and guys that played significant amount of minutes. With Murray Jamal Murray, it was like 15 with Jokic on the court. Ridiculous stuff, right? Everybody with Jokic off the court was like significantly negative. Um, Waiting on it to pull up here real quick because I didn't write down the exact numbers. So with Jokic off, yeah, Jamal Murray with Jokic off was a negative. What? Oh, this is okay. This for some reason it was showing his 2020. Okay, yeah. So with Jokic on the court, Jamal Murray was a plus 15. With Jokic off the court, it was a minus 15. It is like that essentially all across the board with everybody except KCP. I don't know why it was like that with KCP. KCP was their second highest overall player as far as net rating goes. It
That's
is it's very interesting. I don't think it has too much to do with KCP himself. Um I it's just Nikola Jokic is an insane player. Um his net switches for everybody is ridiculous. The one thing that I did look into besides that, because there's not much to look into the actual Nuggets net rating stuff, because all of it will show you that guys get worse when Jokic gets off the court, and it's like significant, right? Russell Westbrook, their newest addition. I don't think a lot of people understand this move the way that it's supposed to be made. A lot of people will say, hey, they can start Murray and Russ together because Russ is 6'3" and Murray 6'4". There's still decent size there. And then they still have MPJ and and Aaron Gordon. Russ will not, should not, I'll say this, he should not play a single minute with Nikola Jokic on the floor. He will still play some, but he is going to be very well utilized when Jokic is not on the floor. Back in 24 this season on the Clippers, in general, Russ had a 2.9 net rating. That's really solid. His net rating was a 4.9 without James Harden on the court, their primary initiator. Russ plays better as a primary initiator player. Um, Given the opportunity to do that on the bench with Denver, I think is going to be really solid. Additionally, the guy they brought in to be a bench center was Dario Saric. Russ needs the floor spacing around him, and some of their wings maybe don't do that well enough. So bringing in that stretch center with Dario Saric to give floor spacing and bench lineups is really solid, and I think an underrated move. Additionally, you go back to 2022 on the Lakers. This was probably the worst that Russ has ever played on a basketball court. Overall, a negative 3.4 net rating. Horrible stuff. Um, with LeBron on the court, or with without LeBron James on with LeBron on the court, it was a negative 5.4. Not very good. It was worse than his overall net rating. It was not a good fit. LeBron needs the ball in his hands. Russ wants the ball in his hands. Additionally, without LeBron on the court, with other ball handling guards, kind of what Murray is, with Malik Monk plus 1.7 with Malik Monk without LeBron, plus 0.4 with Reeves without LeBron, compared to the negative 5.4 with LeBron on. Russ in these lineups without the team's primary initiator with other guards, kind of similar to Murray, you could see a pathway to have a pretty solid team with Jokic on the bench. Will it work that way? I'm not perfectly sure yet. This is a different Russ, but I do like the idea of Russ being their bench guard and maybe not playing too many minutes with Nikola Jokic, because that's not going to be how he's best utilized. You got anything on those numbers?
huh. Um, it's very interesting. I think. Um, yeah. I mean, like you said, is it going to work out? Kind of like I said. I mean, if Westbrook goes back to his playmaking ways, I think it's going to be really good. And like you said, just him initiating the offense, like that's what we've seen him be so good at. So hopefully they do that. But uh, yeah, hopefully they have Westbrook in for Murray, like you said, and Jokic isn't really on the court that much when he is.
Yeah, that's just how I feel about those lineups. That could maybe get them through the the lineups where Jokic can't be on the court. Maybe it's Russ, Gordon, MPJ, Saric, and then another wing somewhere. I think those could be pretty solid lineups. And those aren't even too defensively slanted. And I think interestingly, Saric can play pretty similar to Jokic in how they play defense with guarding pick and roll. I don't, you know, this is all to be seen in the regular season. That's all that I really covered on Denver. Talk about their lineups. Very simple. We're really just debating who the shooting guard is. I'm sure we both would say Murray, Porter, Aaron Gordon, and Jokic are starting for them. What do we think about that fifth starting spot?
Oh, sorry. Um, I mean, I like Christian Braun here at the shooting guard. Um,
Yeah,
he takes over for KCP. Uh, he didn't really. I mean, it's gonna be. I think you give him a shot. You know, young guy. He's an efficient scorer. He can shoot the 3 point ball 30% last year. He's a good rebounder. He's been a good role player for them ever since he's been on the team. He is good on defense. I think you let him go in there, just do what he does best, and just be one of those solid role players. Probably doesn't make maybe doesn't make the huge impact that KCP does, but no, I like Christian Braun. What's your
yeah.
thoughts?
So how I generally like to look at it is, I really like Braun is the guy who's produced in the NBA. An interesting one. He wasn't very good last season for them in the NBA, but Julian Strawther is really interesting. Um, in college, he was a really good shooter. He didn't play too well in the NBA this season, like I said, but he was a very good shooter last season. KCP is a very good shooter. I think he more fits the offensive role that way. Um, if it's not going to be him, I would rather Braun than Peyton Watson be starting. Just because he has a little bit more guard skills. I'm a little more questionable about Braun's shot, but he plays defense hard out there. Um, either way, I think Braun or Schroeder is a, you know, one of those guys probably should start. I don't know if either of them are starting caliber players. Um, but one thing that I did want to mention last season, their starting five had the highest net rating of any lineup that played 40 plus games. It's not going to probably be the case like that anymore, but you know, just based off of what all of the other four players were, I think regardless what they do here, they're still going to have a solid starting five. Where we're more concerned is the bench, of course. Bench point guard is going to be Russ, almost unquestioned. With what they do with their center stuff, it's going to be Saric on the bench, and I think there's just a bunch of minutes for all of their other guys. I had mentioned Watson, I had mentioned Schroeder. I think those are two guys who could get a ton of minutes. Is there anybody else you want to highlight in their depth chart?
Um, Maybe Vlacto Konkar. I know I think he tore his ACL last year, but I think they might have some hopes for him. Uh, I mean, like you said, this is a lot of UDFA's. Um, just like a really weak, like just not, in my opinion, not a very deep team. Um, you have Sarge and Westbrook, and then after that, it really does start to fall off. I think Peyton Watson, Sarge, Westbrook, and then either Braun or Strother are going to be your guys coming off the bench. Yeah, I'm not too high on this Nuggets bench, but I
Yeah,
mean I don't have the real stats on it, but this team played the starting five played a lot of minutes last year. especially Jokic. Jokic does play a lot of minutes. So will it be an issue? We'll end up seeing. Yeah, we'll definitely end up seeing in the regular season with those long season injuries could really hurt this team. I think.
I agree. That'll pretty much cover what I got. You got anything else before we get into predictions?
Nope.
All right. So we'll start offensive MVP. It's Nikola Jokic. I think you have the same one here. Yeah. I don't know how much we
Don't
really
worry.
need to just we don't really need to explain ourselves here, but he's the best offensive player in the league. Um, their offense is Nikola Jokic. Defensive player of the year. I have Aaron Gordon. I want to hear who you have.
Yep. Aaron Gordon.
I mean, we can talk about it. He's maybe the best. He's the best defender on this team. He's a really good switchable player. Like he could. I said earlier, they just let him guard everybody. Um, he's guarding fours and fives like most of the time. Maybe if there's a really good five matchup, Jokic is gonna guard the four and Aaron Gordon's gonna guard their five. He unlocks a lot of stuff here. His athleticism's crazy with their defense. They kind of just let him and MPJ like just make a ton of plays at the rim and just say forget the corner shooters. Y'all are just gonna just blitz the rim if there's a roller there. That's kind of how they like to play it. Um, and they can do a lot of stuff with Aaron Gordon on defense. Very, very good player. What do you have for X Factor? I'm interested.
I kind of got two guys, but I mean I'll start off. I'm saying Christian Braun just because for the fact I think he's going to be starting, and I think they need someone to take over KCP's role as that. When you need a three, he will make one for you. Just a really good shooter last year was KCP. Um, will Christian Braun be able to be consistent from the 3 point line? I think if he does, this it's a really big plus for the Nuggets. And then the other guy I'm gonna go to because screw it. I think Westbrook is a pretty big piece for them. If he does the things that you said that he has the very very easily has the abilities to do, it changes this team. It changes it to a really good front end team, but really bad or not really bad, but not very good bench wise. To a team that can maybe compete when a team that will go on runs when Jokic is out and can hold their own when Jokic is out, and the other starters in this lineup. So I think Westbrook could be a big part of it. Yeah, that's who I got. Who do you think, Pat?
I kind of just have Brown because if somebody's gonna play into the starting lineup and really make a difference, it's gonna be him. If it's Strother in the starting lineup, it's just gonna be because he's the only guy they think can shoot well enough. If Brian is in the lineup, it's because he's really doing a lot of the little things out there that are helping them win. And maybe not just if Braun's not good enough shooting wise to start, or if they're starting Schroeder, it's because Braun being out there is hurting the starting lineup. If Braun's starting, it's because they really think he's helping them out there. Um, and I think that's maybe a top 100 player in the league if he's what they expect him to be. So I it's not there wasn't a ton of options to go with here on Denver. Yeah, that's my guy too. So overall, kind of wrapping it up here. Do we think they got better, or do we think they got worse?
I'm gonna go controversial. I'm gonna say they got worse.
I think I agree.
Oh, really? Okay. All right. Never mind then.
I don't I think losing KCP is a lot bigger than people think.
I
So
100% agree.
and like I
100%
don't
agree.
they went from a team that I think could have won the West to a team that should be competing for a top 3 to 4 seed, if it at worst, right? Overall, it just wasn't a great offseason for them. We'll see how they continue to build their team. Um, unless you have anything else on Denver, we're gonna wrap it up here.
No, I think we said pretty much everything. Um, yeah.
Yeah. All right, so that'll do it for the Denver Nuggets episode. We will see you in the next episode. I should have pulled up the divisions. I believe it should
Timberwolves.
be
Timberwolves are next.
Timberwolves. Yeah, okay. Minnesota Timberwolves are the next team. We will see y'all
I
then.
think.